Sarah had finally settled under her soft quilt, the gentle hum of the night outside her window offering the promise of rest, her mind slowly untangling from the day's demands. She felt the comforting weight of exhaustion pressing her eyelids down, ready to let sleep carry her into calm, undisturbed hours. The house was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock, the occasional rustle of wind brushing against the trees outside, and the distant glow of streetlights that filtered softly through the curtains. She closed her eyes, ready to surrender to the quiet, when an unexpected, gentle knock at her bedroom door jolted her from the brink of sleep. "Mom, can I come in?" her son, Ethan's, tentative voice whispered through the door. The tone was hesitant, unusual for him at this hour, and it carried a weight that immediately tugged at Sarah's maternal instincts. Sitting up, she pulled the blanket around her shoulders and nodded, signaling him to enter, though a subtle nervous energy began to rise within her. Ethan stepped inside cautiously, avoiding her gaze, his hands fidgeting as if he carried an invisible burden that weighed heavily on his shoulders. The dim light from the bedside lamp cast soft shadows across his face, highlighting the worry etched in his features, and Sarah's heart thumped with concern, curiosity, and a quiet apprehension she couldn't quite name. "What's wrong, Ethan?" she asked gently, her voice steady though her pulse quickened. He hesitated, taking a deep breath as if gathering the courage to speak a truth that might change everything. "It's about Jamie," he murmured, his eyes briefly meeting hers before darting away. The name struck her with an unexpected pang. Jamie had been Ethan's closest friend for years, someone she knew well, someone who had become almost part of their family in subtle ways. Sarah's mind raced, trying to anticipate what news could be so pressing that it required a late-night confession. "Tell me," she encouraged softly, her heart tight with a mix of dread and anticipation. Ethan swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper as he admitted that Jamie had expressed feelings he hadn't anticipated, feelings that went beyond friendship, feelings that complicated the familiar patterns of their lives. Sarah felt a swirl of emotions, concern for her son, a natural instinct to protect, a quiet tug of unease, and an odd, unidentifiable flutter in her chest, as though the news had stirred something deep within her that had been dormant for years. She reached out and gently held his hands, grounding him, grounding herself, trying to navigate the sudden surge of emotions that had filled the room. "I'm glad you told me," she said, voice tender and steady. "It's not easy to share something like this, and I want you to know I'm proud of your honesty." Ethan's lips curved into a small, tentative smile, relief washing over him, but Sarah couldn't shake the quiet tension that lingered between them, the knowledge that life had just shifted slightly, imperceptibly yet unmistakably, and that they were standing at the threshold of something unfamiliar. She noticed the vulnerability in him, the hope and fear intertwined in his gaze, and she realized that this late-night revelation was more than a casual confession. It was a moment of trust, a moment that required her to listen deeply, to be present fully, without judgment, and to navigate emotions that were as delicate as they were profound. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that speaks volumes, as Ethan searched for the right words to express what he felt, and Sarah held space for him, her own heart quietly racing with thoughts and emotions she hadn't anticipated. She thought about the past few months, how she had noticed subtle changes in Ethan's demeanor, moments when he seemed distracted or thoughtful, and now it made sense, the gentle shift in his eyes when Jamie's name came up, the excitement tinged with hesitation that she had sensed but not fully understood. Sarah felt the warmth of maternal love mixed with a protective instinct, knowing that her role was to guide and support, yet she also felt a quiet curiosity, a stirring within herself about the complexities of relationships, the beauty of honesty, and the vulnerability that came with opening one's heart. Ethan finally spoke again, explaining that Jamie's feelings had taken him by surprise, that he was unsure how to respond, how to navigate his own emotions, and how to balance the closeness of friendship with the possibility of something deeper. Sarah listened attentively, nodding, offering words of comfort and reassurance, but internally she felt a subtle ache, a gentle awareness of her own longing for connection and understanding, the kind that comes from recognizing the fragile and beautiful moments when hearts reach out to each other. She reminded him that emotions are complex, that feelings can evolve in unexpected ways, and that honesty is always a strength, even when it leads to uncertainty. Ethan's eyes shone with gratitude, and Sarah felt a quiet pride in his courage, in his ability to face emotional truths head-on. As they continued talking, the bond between mother and son deepened, strengthened by trust, empathy, and mutual respect, and Sarah realized that life was full of unexpected revelations that could arrive at the quietest hours, at moments when one is least prepared, yet they hold the power to transform understanding and nurture growth. The clock ticked softly, unnoticed, as they navigated this intimate conversation, and Sarah understood that this night, this simple knock at the door, had opened a door to emotions and realizations that would linger, shaping their relationship and the choices that lay ahead. She felt a gentle tension and anticipation, knowing that this was only the beginning, that there were truths yet to explore, emotions yet to unfold, and perhaps, lessons about love, honesty, and connection that would extend far beyond this one night. Ethan, sensing the gravity of the moment yet reassured by his mother's calm presence, found a sense of relief in sharing, and Sarah, in turn, felt a profound sense of responsibility and tenderness, recognizing the delicate balance of guiding a child while navigating her own quiet stirrings of reflection and awareness. She considered the way life sometimes surprises, how ordinary nights can transform into turning points, and how a single, unexpected confession could ripple through hearts, leaving lasting impressions. In that bedroom, lit by the soft glow of a bedside lamp, with the night holding its quiet vigil outside, Sarah felt an emotional resonance that was both startling and comforting, a reminder that connection, honesty, and care are at the core of human experience, and that even the smallest moments, like a knock on the door, could carry the weight of something far greater, something transformative. She realized that tonight would not be forgotten, that it would linger in memory like a gentle, poignant chord, marking the beginning of a journey of understanding, love, and emotional depth, not just for Ethan, but for herself as well. And as she held his hands, feeling the warmth of his presence, Sarah knew that whatever unfolded in the days to come, they had shared something rare and precious, a moment of vulnerability, trust, and revelation that would quietly guide their hearts toward growth, compassion, and perhaps, even the subtle stirrings of hope and connection she hadn't realized she still carried. The next morning, Sarah woke with Ethan's words still echoing in her mind, the weight of the late-night confession settling into a quiet, persistent hum that she couldn't shake. As she moved through her morning routine, preparing breakfast and glancing out at the soft sunlight spilling across the kitchen, her thoughts kept drifting back to the conversation, to the vulnerability in Ethan's voice, to the unexpected revelation about Jamie, and to the subtle yet undeniable shift it had caused in her perception of the people she cared for. She noticed, with a mixture of curiosity and a strange flutter in her chest, how deeply she felt for the well-being of both her son and his best friend, a tenderness that seemed to blur the lines between ordinary concern and a more profound awareness of emotions. Throughout the day, Sarah found herself reflecting on the little moments she had shared with Ethan and Jamie over the years, the laughter echoing through the living room during board games, the gentle teasing that warmed quiet afternoons, the way Jamie's eyes lit up with enthusiasm at simple joys, and she realized that she had grown attached not only to her son's happiness but also to the unspoken charm and quiet warmth of Jamie himself. When Ethan returned home from school, his energy subdued, his thoughts clearly occupied, Sarah noticed the subtle tension in his movements, the way he avoided direct eye contact as he hung his backpack and dropped onto the sofa. "How was school?" she asked lightly, trying to ease the air, but her voice betrayed a hint of concern. Ethan hesitated, then shrugged, muttering something about ordinary classes and homework, yet Sarah sensed he was holding back more than words revealed. As the afternoon sun cast golden tones across the room, Ethan finally opened up, sharing small details about his interactions with Jamie, the nervous smiles, the exchanged glances, and the quiet moments of laughter that now carried a deeper meaning. Sarah listened, offering nods and gentle words, careful not to interrupt but fully present, her own heart quietly attuned to the unfolding story of young emotions that balanced on the edge of friendship and something more. She realized that the news from last night wasn't just a fleeting moment of adolescent confession, it was a turning point that invited reflection, patience, and understanding, not only for Ethan but for herself, as she navigated the stirrings of her own emotional awareness. The day moved forward, filled with ordinary tasks, yet every mundane moment seemed tinged with a quiet significance. When she folded laundry, she caught herself imagining how Jamie and Ethan might navigate this new terrain, how their feelings could evolve, and how she might support them without imposing, all while acknowledging the gentle ache in her own heart for connection and intimacy that had quietly grown alongside her maternal instincts. That evening, while preparing dinner, she glanced out the kitchen window, noticing the soft hues of sunset painting the neighborhood, and thought about how life could change subtly, in ways that were easy to overlook yet profound once recognized. Ethan lingered nearby, occasionally glancing at her, and she felt the warmth of his presence, a reminder that trust and honesty could form the foundation of deeper relationships, whether between parent and child or between friends discovering unspoken emotions. As they sat down for dinner, the conversation flowed carefully, with Sarah encouraging openness while allowing Ethan to lead the dialogue, discussing feelings, boundaries, and hopes without judgment, and she realized how essential it was to create a safe space where emotions could be expressed freely. The meal passed with quiet laughter and gentle exchanges, each small smile, each soft glance, reinforcing the bond between mother and son, and subtly, the connection she sensed forming between herself and the unfolding narrative surrounding Jamie. Later, as night approached and the household grew quiet once more, Sarah found herself sitting in the living room, reflecting on the day's events, the courage it had taken Ethan to share his feelings, and the way honesty had deepened their relationship. Her mind wandered to the idea of love, not just the romantic kind, but the layered, nuanced forms that existed in family, friendship, and the tender, often unspoken moments that could spark a quiet awakening within the heart. She thought about the subtle longing she felt for companionship, for understanding, and for a connection that went beyond routine and responsibility, and she recognized that these feelings, though gentle and restrained, were valid and part of the human experience. As the clock ticked softly and the moonlight filtered through the curtains, she contemplated the path ahead, the conversations to be had, the support to be offered, the delicate balance between nurturing her son's emotional growth and navigating the stirrings within her own heart. Ethan eventually approached her, quiet but seeking reassurance, and Sarah held his hand, offering comfort, understanding, and encouragement, aware that this was a moment of bonding that would shape their lives, reinforcing trust and empathy in ways that could endure for years. She reminded herself to listen without judgment, to guide with patience, and to embrace the unexpected turns of life with grace and awareness, knowing that the challenges of the heart often come wrapped in lessons of love, care, and understanding. That night, as she prepared for bed, Sarah felt a subtle shift within herself, a heightened sensitivity to emotions, an appreciation for the courage required to be honest, and a quiet hope that life could surprise her with connections and experiences she hadn't anticipated. She reflected on the beauty of these unfolding dynamics, the richness of shared vulnerability, and the potential for deeper, more meaningful relationships to emerge when hearts were open and honest. And as she closed her eyes, she felt a mixture of anticipation, curiosity, and a gentle excitement, knowing that the journey ahead, both for Ethan and for herself, would be filled with moments of tenderness, understanding, and emotional growth, each day bringing new insights, new challenges, and new opportunities to connect, love, and navigate the complex, beautiful landscape of human emotion together. Days passed, and the memory of Ethan's late-night confession lingered in Sarah's mind like a quiet echo she couldn't escape, a gentle pull at her heart that made ordinary moments feel charged with meaning, as if life itself had subtly shifted while she hadn't been paying attention. She found herself noticing the small things, the way Ethan's eyes lit up when he spoke of Jamie, the way Jamie's laughter seemed to linger in the corners of her mind, the way the two of them shared glances and smiles that spoke of an unspoken connection, and each observation brought with it a mixture of maternal concern and an unexpected, almost aching awareness of her own loneliness and longing for companionship, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge in years. Every evening, as she prepared dinner or tidied the house, Sarah replayed the moments from last week, the nervous honesty of Ethan's voice, the tentative way he had sought her guidance, and she realized how much courage it had taken for him to speak so openly, and how that same courage could inspire her to examine her own heart, to face the quiet desires she had buried under routines and responsibilities, to recognize the subtle stirrings of attraction, admiration, and longing that she had been ignoring in her own life. When Ethan and Jamie spent afternoons together at the house, playing games, studying, or just laughing over shared jokes, Sarah observed from a distance, feeling an unusual warmth in her chest, a tender curiosity about the nature of feelings, connection, and the way human hearts could quietly entwine in unexpected ways. She noticed the gentle respect Jamie showed toward Ethan, the sincerity in their conversations, and how even small gestures, like a shared smile or a fleeting glance, could carry a weight of emotion that was both innocent and deeply affecting. And she found herself wondering about the beauty of human relationships, the power of honesty, and the depth of emotions that could exist even in simple, everyday moments. Sarah's own emotions became a tapestry of care, empathy, and a quiet yearning, a longing she couldn't entirely define, a mixture of hope and subtle melancholy that reminded her of her own need for meaningful connection, for someone who could understand and share the unspoken, tender currents of her heart. And she felt both the joy and the ache of watching Ethan navigate his feelings while recognizing that life, in its gentle unpredictability, had lessons to teach her as well. One evening, as rain softly pattered against the windows and the house was filled with the gentle sound of water on the roof, Sarah found herself alone in the living room, reflecting on the complexities of love, friendship, and the unexpected ways emotions could awaken. She thought about the courage it took to be vulnerable, the joy of witnessing honesty, and the quiet thrill of realizing that life still held surprises, tender moments, and possibilities she had long forgotten to hope for. And in that soft, rainy light, she felt a subtle shift within her, a willingness to open her heart a little more, to pay attention to the beauty around her, and to embrace the gentle stirrings of attraction, admiration, and emotional connection that were quietly threading through her life. When Ethan approached her later that night, nervous and seeking comfort after a long day, Sarah welcomed him with a warm smile and attentive ears, holding space for his thoughts, feelings, and confusions without judgment, while also realizing that the bond they shared was growing deeper, richer, and more nuanced, strengthened by honesty, trust, and the shared experience of navigating emotions together. And she felt the delicate satisfaction of witnessing his growth, his courage, and his capacity for tenderness, which in turn inspired her to reflect on her own capacity for love, understanding, and emotional openness. Sarah began to notice small ways that life's quiet moments offered glimpses of connection, how Jamie's presence, though indirect, brought light to ordinary days, how Ethan's honesty created space for meaningful dialogue, and how her own heart responded to these gentle currents with curiosity, longing, and a renewed sense of emotional awareness. She realized that love and affection were not always loud or dramatic, but often subtle, patient, and quietly profound, existing in gestures, smiles, shared laughter, and moments of attentive listening, and she allowed herself to savor the richness of these experiences while preparing for the next day, the next conversation, the next small but meaningful encounter that could illuminate life in unexpected ways. In the evenings, as she watched Ethan and Jamie interact, Sarah felt a blend of pride, warmth, and tender yearning, recognizing the beauty of young emotions, the delicacy of first confessions, and the power of trust in nurturing connections. And she thought about how these lessons could guide her own heart, reminding her that even in adulthood, vulnerability, courage, and openness were essential to experiencing joy, intimacy, and the quiet, soulful satisfaction of human connection. The more she observed, the more she appreciated the subtle dances of emotion, the delicate layers of feeling that made everyday life extraordinary, and the way moments of honesty, even whispered in the quiet of a late night, could ripple through hearts, creating tenderness, understanding, and the potential for growth. She realized that love, in all its forms, whether parental, friendly, or romantic, required attention, courage, and the willingness to embrace uncertainty, and that by witnessing Ethan's journey, she could also reflect on her own path, embracing the quiet hope, longing, and awakening that stirred within her. As the week went on, Sarah felt a sense of anticipation, a gentle excitement at the unfolding story of emotions around her, a curiosity about what the next day might bring, and a quiet acknowledgement that life, with its unexpected turns, confessions, and subtle connections, was both fragile and beautiful, filled with opportunities to nurture trust, compassion, and love. She felt inspired to remain present, to cherish honesty, and to allow her heart to respond to the delicate stirrings of attraction, understanding, and emotional resonance, trusting that in time, patience, and openness would guide her and those she cared about toward deeper, more meaningful relationships. And that night, As she prepared for bed, Sarah reflected on the beauty of the day, the courage of Ethan, the innocence and charm of Jamie, and the awakening of her own heart to emotions she had long ignored, realizing that life had a way of teaching lessons in the quietest of moments, through subtle gestures, shared laughter, and whispered confessions, and she closed her eyes with a sense of calm anticipation, knowing that the journey ahead would be filled with tender discoveries, emotional growth, and the gentle possibility of connection, love, and heartfelt understanding, as life continued to unfold with all its quiet magic and unexpected, delicate joys. The days that followed were filled with a quiet, lingering tension, the kind that hums softly beneath the surface of ordinary life, as Sarah watched Ethan and Jamie grow closer in ways both subtle and unmistakable, their laughter echoing through the house like a gentle melody, and each shared glance, each playful exchange, carried a depth of emotion that seemed almost tangible, filling her with a mixture of warmth, pride, and an unexpected ache in her own heart, a recognition of longing she had pushed aside for far too long. She noticed the way Jamie's presence brought light to the room, how he instinctively checked on Ethan when he struggled with homework or became frustrated over a game, the tender attentiveness in his voice, and the quiet care in his gestures that reminded Sarah how meaningful small acts of connection could be, and how easily hearts could intertwine without words, through sincerity and presence alone. That evening, as rain softly tapped against the windows and the house glowed with the warm, golden light of lamps, Sarah sat in the living room sipping tea, her mind swirling with reflections on love, trust, and the unexpected ways feelings could surface in life. She thought about her own journey, the quiet loneliness that had settled in over the years, the routines that left her heart numb at times, and how witnessing Ethan's courage and Jamie's sincerity had stirred something within her, a quiet hope, a delicate yearning for connection, understanding, and perhaps, the possibility of romance that was gentle, patient, and real. She watched as Ethan and Jamie playfully argued over a board game, teasing each other, their smiles bright and easy, and she realized how much joy honesty and authenticity could bring, not just to teenagers navigating first feelings but to adults too, whose hearts often needed gentle awakenings to remember what it felt like to be alive with emotion, to feel seen, to feel a bond that transcended simple familiarity. Later, Jamie looked up and caught Sarah's eye briefly, a small, polite nod and a warm smile, and in that fleeting exchange, she felt a current of understanding, a quiet acknowledgement of shared humanity, and the realization that life's most meaningful connections often arrived unannounced, at moments we least expected, requiring only openness and presence to be recognized and cherished. She felt her chest tighten slightly, a soft stir of emotion she hadn't felt in years, a reminder that the heart could awaken at any age, that connection could appear in gentle, unexpected ways, and that the courage to notice it and respond mattered just as much as the feelings themselves. The evening deepened into night, and as Ethan reluctantly prepared for bed, sharing a few final thoughts about his day and quietly expressing gratitude for Sarah's understanding, she held his hand and reassured him with warmth and patience, knowing that nurturing his emotional growth was as important as allowing her own heart to quietly open. She reflected on the intricate dance of feelings, the layers of trust and love, and how subtle moments, shared smiles, honest conversations, gentle guidance, could shape relationships profoundly, quietly steering hearts toward greater understanding and empathy. Alone later, Sarah allowed herself a moment of introspection, thinking about the beauty of honesty, the power of empathy, and the subtle ways life could surprise us with opportunities for connection, for tenderness, for the quiet thrill of realizing that someone noticed and valued the depth of your heart. She considered the journey she had witnessed, Ethan's confession, Jamie's sincerity, the moments of shared laughter and care, and realized that these experiences had awakened her own heart, encouraging her to embrace life's gentle surprises with openness and hope. In the soft glow of the night, she remembered the quiet lessons of courage, honesty, and vulnerability that had been shared in fleeting conversations and ordinary afternoons, and she recognized that these lessons applied to her too, as she allowed herself to feel the gentle stirrings of attraction, longing, and emotional resonance that life had carefully, quietly placed in her path. She thought about the possibility of future moments, of shared understanding, and of discovering a connection that could be tender, respectful, and profoundly human, unfolding naturally and beautifully without rush or force. Sarah knew that the journey was far from over, that feelings were still forming, and that the threads of connection between her, Ethan, and Jamie were weaving a complex but beautiful tapestry of emotion, understanding, and care. She felt a soft anticipation, a quiet excitement for the days to come, for the conversations yet to be had, the laughter yet to be shared, and the delicate revelations that awaited them, reminding her that life's most meaningful experiences often arrived in small, subtle ways, requiring only the courage to notice, the patience to nurture, and the willingness to open one's heart fully. As she prepared for bed, her thoughts lingered on the beauty of human emotion, the way trust and honesty could deepen bonds, how gentle gestures of care could transform relationships, and how the heart, when allowed to respond freely, could awaken to unexpected joys, tenderness, and even romance that was mature, respectful, and profoundly fulfilling. She felt a sense of calm, of hope, and of readiness to embrace whatever unfolded next, confident that life, with its quiet surprises and unspoken moments of connection, would continue to guide her toward experiences that nourished both her soul and the hearts of those she loved. And as she finally lay down, listening to the soft rhythm of the night, Sarah understood that love and emotional connection were not always loud or dramatic. They often arrived softly, in late-night confessions, in shared laughter, in quiet glances, and in the willingness to open one's heart. She smiled softly, a gentle thrill of anticipation stirring within her, knowing that the story of their lives was still unfolding, full of tender possibilities, heartfelt connections, and the quiet, enduring beauty of human emotion, trust, and love that could grow patiently, gently, and profoundly, one moment at a time.